Evaluation Couch with Maria Montenegro.
Hi, everyone. I'm super excited because today I have my first guest for my podcast. Gabriela Rentería Flores is a monitoring, evaluation, and learning senior associate, and she's also the chair of EvalYouth Global Network. She's also one of the amazing people that evaluation has brought into my life and a dear friend of mine. Gabby has always been a friend that I've been able to have honest conversations and that I can always count on. So I think she's the perfect person to have as my first guest. Hi, Gabby, and thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Maria. Thank you for inviting me to this great space. It's really cool to be here today to talk about the topic that we want to talk.
I know because EvalYouth has been such a big part of our lives for the last 2, 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
It's how we met actually. Well,
it
kind
is
of.
how we met. Yeah. And we'll definitely share that story. But Gabby, I know you've been very busy lately. So I'm very grateful that you've made the time to be here. Do you want to share what you've been up to in the last few weeks? Because I think it's been quite of an adventure you've had.
Yes, I've been in South Korea in Seoul for a couple of weeks. I was as part of my job, I was in a training, learning more about monitoring and evaluation, putting my knowledge in practice and sharing with other colleagues what we have experienced in our job recently and learning.
That's so cool, Gabby. I always, whenever people go on trips, I like to ask them, what is your number one favorite thing of that experience?
Well, meeting people, I have to say that I love the food. And I love the country. And I love Seoul. Like it's such an amazing city. And I don't know, it was a positive experience for me. It was a great surprise because I didn't expect it to be so friendly. The people was really nice and respectful, and in general, like the whole experience of living there for a couple of weeks was just amazing. I really enjoyed living there, like in a personal note, but also in the professional side. I was like super happy sharing experiences, and sometimes we talk with other evaluators and it's like we talk the same language, and that's what I did there. It was really a great experience for me.
Yeah, it's always refreshing being with people that don't ask, what is evaluation again?
Yeah. And what about
Nice.
you, Maria? What have you been up to?
I've just been in Vancouver, preparing this podcast, working. It's been good. I came back from the Canadian Evaluation Society conference. And yeah, also wrapping up over the last couple of months my involvement with EvalYouth North America, which is kind of leads us to why we're here. And this episode is kind of timely, Gabi. So as we were discussing, we actually met because of EvalYouth in a way about over 3 years ago. So today we were a bit strategic in having this episode to reflect on our leadership experience, me with EvalYouth North America, you with EvalYouth Global. And we wanted to have this podcast specifically this week because there's some big things happening in EvalYouth Global. Gabby, why don't you tell us about that?
Yes, that'd be great. So in EvalYouth Global Network, we are in a transition period and elections are coming up. A little bit over 3 years ago, I was elected as representative of the Latin America and the Caribbean to the Global Network. And now we're having elections and selecting new representatives, executive committee and management group of the network. And yeah, we're really happy to share that with everyone. But maybe I would like to start by introducing what Evil Youth is. And maybe I can start with you, Maria. What Evil Youth is for you?
I always explain EvalYouth as a global network that supports young and emerging evaluators.
To me, it's also that. It's that network that supports and that is actually built for and by young and emerging evaluators, by all of those who are interested in evaluation and don't really know where to start and how to start. And then we find this awesome space of sharing, learning in a collaborative environment. Evil Youth is a global network that has their own regional and national chapters and that have many interactions and many opportunities for young and emerging villagers to get involved, but not as passive objects of receiving workshops, training, etc., but also on building the profession of evaluation in general. To me, that's Evil Youth.
Yeah, and I think one aspect as well that we have been involved in through EvalYouth is the advocacy, right? Like the role we play in advocating for more spaces for young and emerging evaluators in building and shaping the future of evaluation as a field, and also in shaping evaluations of programs.
Yeah, definitely. EvalYouth is that space where, like, you as young and emerging evaluator are not that passive actor in evaluation, but really advocating for others and opening up spaces to others as well, to new people, to people who comes with this new and fresh perspective in evaluation. I don't know if I've ever tell you this, but like to me, EvalYouth is kind of that opening space, that space that if you really care and love evaluation as a profession and what we do and are convinced for what we're doing, you see EvalYouth as that space where like just young and emerging evaluators can explore themselves, and by that shaping the profession.
Yeah, I think it has become a space with a lot less barriers than other groups, other professional groups that require membership or that you have to pay to be a part of. Whereas EvalYouth, at least from the beginning, since I've interacted with any sort of EvalYouth group, it's always been welcoming and free. You can join whatever the region has, whether it's a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group, or just coming in an event and volunteer if you want to volunteer. It's always been very open and welcoming.
Yeah, definitely. And to me, that's quite interesting because from where I sit as chair of EvalYouth, I can see the many different interactions and the many different ways of communicating that actually is a reflection not only of this nature of EvalYouth being innovative and open, but also as a reflection of the difference between regions and countries. I mean, it's not the same like which channels people in Latin America uses as the people in Asia. I don't know. It's just like it really it's a great experience of learning different ways, even within the same group, even within the same organization or network. There's no one rule that applies to everyone. There's no suit that fits everyone, and I really like that.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of the nature of like the global aspect of it, right? Like one thing I've been grateful for, because I was born in Ecuador, so I am Latin, and I was very early on kind of adopted to the Latin American EvalYouth WhatsApp group. So I've been able to see like that group and how they interact and how active it is, and they have an amazing community, and then compare that to the ways, as you say, that people work in North America. And we have proposed having a WhatsApp group in North America, but it's not something that kind of lands well with people to make something they use for their personal life and make it kind of, yeah, they need more separation around splitting those two. So there's never been openness to that, but that's okay, right? There's different ways of communicating and preferences across regions.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, when people come and ask me, hey, we want to create a chapter, what are the rules? And I'm like, yeah, actually, there are no rules. I mean, it's quite open. The only thing that we have in common is that we want to promote young and emerging leaders, that we want to open up those spaces, that we want to organize those different activities. But there is no really a rule. There's no guidelines. Oh, you need to have this structure, or you need to have this way of communicating, or you need to create, I don't know, certain number of events every month or every year. It's this flexible space.
Yeah. And then you see a lot of variety within the chapters because of that. Gabby, how many regional and national chapters does EvalYouth have now?
We have over 20 national chapters and 7 regional chapters. And the growth of EvalYouth has been exponential because actually EvalYouth is a very young network in itself, turns 9 years this year.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it started with 23 young and emerging evaluators, and now having more than 20 national chapters is just amazing to me. And I don't know, like every time that I go to a conference or that I participate in some event or that I see any event, online event or something, there's always a young and emerging evaluator there stepping up and, just acting and opening spaces.
Yeah, and I think it's very evident in the G Local week, which is happening soon. And events have started to pop up on LinkedIn, and there's so many Eval Youth events across the world. It's just so great to see.
And not only that, Maria, as well, the Youth in Evaluation Week. It's just a week of events, full of events created for and by young and emerging evaluators or to support young and emerging evaluators. Yeah, it's just amazing to me.
Yeah, it has definitely been growing exponentially. Gabby, now that we've kind of covered what is Eval Youth, I thought it would be fun to reflect on how we met and how, because I think our friendship has moved on parallel with our Eval Youth involvement. And I was just trying to prepare for this episode and going back in time. And yeah, it's been very interesting. So if I don't remember incorrectly, we met about 3.5 years ago when we were brought together to plan the Eval for Action North America regional consultation.
Yes, exactly. I remember that we had an initial call kind of to try to figure out what is this regional consultation of Eval for Action? What is actually Eval for Action? And then we got the task of getting 3 countries together, people from evaluation in Mexico, the US, and Canada together, and the same consultation to define the priorities in evaluation for the future. And not only in general, but in the decade for action.
Right. So that is the call for how to use and promote the use of evaluation towards achievement of the sustainable development goals. Yeah. So that consultation took place in, I believe, 2020. So I can share how I ended up in that call. So in 2020, I actually was a mentee in the Eval Youth Mentorship Program. That was the first time I interacted with Eval Youth. And it was such a great experience for me in my evaluation career. And when it ended, I was just kind of reflecting on like, why have I never heard of Eval Youth before? Because it's just such an amazing opportunity for people. So I started asking, just kind of asking around, like, why is there no regional chapter in North America? Has this been tried before? Why? Just why? And through those questions and connections, I ended up being connected with Zach Tilton, who was at that time the American Evaluation Association representative to Eval Youth. So we had a call and I was asking and saying like, hey, I kind of really think there should be an Eval Youth chapter in North America because there's no visibility of this organization in where I live and in the spaces that I move. And that's when he was like, actually, I need to start planning this event. Why don't you like come along? And that's how I got involved. But I never learned how you got involved.
I think it actually starts in how I got involved with Able Youth.
Mm-hmm.
Because in 2019, at the end of 2019, I quit my job in the monitoring sphere in a governmental organization in Mexico. And then, beginning of 2020, pandemics came and I couldn't find a job that I liked on evaluation. Then I actually got presented this great opportunity of doing a consultancy job for a development organization. And then I was like, okay, I guess I'm pursuing this career of being an independent evaluator. But I always felt that need of community. I actually just started looking around and found out about Eval Youth. In 2020, actually, I joined one of the task force at the time of EvalYouth Global Network. And they actually seek to engage and to promote young and emerging evaluators within the VOPES, that are the voluntary organizations for professionalization of evaluation. And I was very active in organizing events, workshops, webinars, conducting some studies, and etc. And a few months later, Gerardo Sanchez from Eval Youth LAC invited me, like, hey, there's this event coming. Do you want to be part of it? Because now you're also involved in Eval Youth. And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. And that's how I ended up in that call, organizing the regional consultation for Eval for Action in North America.
Yeah, I think when we were all brought into that call and that task, we were all open, but definitely didn't fully know the amount of effort it would take.
Yeah.
I remember, yeah, so we spent like maybe 2 or 3 months where we interacted and talked a lot. And I think that's where we became friends and we developed friendships with the rest of the group that involved a couple more people. So then after the regional consultation, which was actually a success. I think there was 100 attendees and we had a really great speakers.
Yeah. And it was a great experience, Maria, because it brought together like not only three countries, but like BOPAS, but also Clear Center. I think it was a Clear Center in LAC, and also speakers from governmental organizations, from UN nations. And it was just such a energizing moment, I will say, to share why evaluation is important, especially in this decade of action, and why we should consider it, and why it's important in our region. What do we want to achieve? And it was, to me, it was also a great success because of the involvement of people. It brought a lot of attention to the Evil for Action campaign, and really to promote, not only to promote, but actually using evaluation as a tool to make decisions to achieve these global goals, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. So then I remember like after the regional consultation, we continued to work together in kind of summarizing the findings. I remember we presented at the Canadian Evaluation Society virtual conference. We had a poster.
Yeah.
And I remember that when we were preparing and having the discussions around the Eval for Action consultation, we took the opportunity to also ask people at the event, I believe, if they would like to see an EvalYouth North America chapter.
Exactly.
And we heard like yes. So that was after the consultation. That was when I took on connecting with the Canadian Evaluation Society, with the American Evaluation Association, some folks that had been involved in establishing EvalYouth, and all of that kind of led up to the launch of EvalYouth North America in February of 2022. And then I chaired and was part of EvalYouth North America for 2 years and just stepped down out of that role 2 months ago. Yeah, it's so interesting to remember how it all started.
And to me, at the beginning, it was really cool. One of the projects that you guys did on the map of programs, of evaluation programs in North America, because it was kind of one innovation.
Yeah.
And it was actually also a very good example of how young people can not only promote, but really how can young people create new tools for new people that is coming.
Yeah, definitely. And that tool still exists. It's still out there. I was just reflecting as well as I was preparing for this episode on the things that I'm most proud of the work we did in EvalYouth North America, and the map is definitely one of them. The new EvalYouth North America board is actually going to have an event in G Local where they're going to be discussing and presenting the map, right? Because we need to continue raising awareness, but it still exists. We still update it with information so it's up to date, and I'll be adding the link of the map to the podcast description so people can check it out if you haven't seen it before.
It's really cool. Just check it out. It's actually, I mean, now there are many lists and other tools, but to me that was one of the very first ones, and that it was not only a tool but really visual and interactive.
Yeah, I think that what I like of the map is that there's a lot of lists of post-secondary programs and there's a lot of list of VOPs, but I like that our map brings everything together because for me it highlights something I strongly believe, which is that there's multiple ways of growing your career. You don't have to do an evaluation program to become an evaluator. So it's that aspect of bringing it all together. And I also think even if with technology things have become easier, the geographical location where you are is important when you decide what group to be involved in. And the map has a geographical view that is my favorite one, where you can actually see the groups that are relevant in your province, in your region, in your state. And yeah, I like that feature a lot.
And evaluation in general, it's an ecosystem, right? We have many different kinds of actors, etc. And that map brings them all together. It's one of my favorite projects, actually.
That's nice to hear. The unfortunate thing, and I think this topic is gonna come up again later in our conversation, but the unfortunate thing is we are EvalYouth Everywhere is an a network. We're not even a nonprofit or a charity. So we really don't have funds except when there's specific organizations that support our work. So because of this reason, we couldn't buy the subscription of Kumu that would allow us to track use. So it's out there, and we hear from people once in a while that they want to update the information or that they use it, but we can't really track its use. So it's always good to hear when people just share their experiences with it.
When you actually launched the map, it had a lot of attraction and attracted a lot of people. And still, when people ask me, yeah, can you share what the regional chapters are doing? I always keep referring to the map because I think it's just such a great tool. And it's especially good for young and emerging evaluators or for people who's just starting in the evaluation field, especially in North America.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. So if you haven't seen the map, check it out. And if you know someone starting their career who, especially if they live in Canada and the United States, share the map with them. It's a great resource. So, Gaby, what happened to you after the regional consultation and how did you end up being the chair of EvalYouth?
Well, that's a great question, Maria, because my experience in EvalYouth, as I just told you, started in 2020. And in 2021, I was already elected as the representative from the Latin American, the Caribbean region. And I always ask myself, how did I end up there? Because it's such a crucial step in my career, right? So I just mentioned that I started participating in one of the task forces of EvalYouth Global Network, participated in some activities like the regional consultation. And then the elections for the new management group were out there. They had this public call. I didn't even consider on applying because I was like, oh, I'm just too new for EvalYouth. So how am I going to be one of their representatives? But then I actually got invited by one of the regional chapter leaders who convinced me, like, no, you should definitely apply. You have a good experience. You already have been participating in the regional activities, but also in the global network. So I did. I participated. I nominated myself. And as a result of the elections, I was selected by the people from the region as a representative for the management group. In April 2021, I think, we got the announcement that the new management group composition. And then within that group, we selected the executive committee that was the chair, vice chair, and secretariat for the global network.
So
and I was elected.
Sorry, Gaby. So just to clarify, people self-nominated to represent the region in the management board, and then within the people that had been selected for that, there is a selection of who's the chair, vice chair.
Yes, exactly, like an internal selection. With the management group. One of the very interesting things is that EvalYouth is really open to everyone, but we also want to have representatives from all the regions. So actually elections are open for young and emerging electors from all the regions. And from that, we selected the executive committee of the network. Yes.
So when you accepted self-nominating yourself, you self-nominated to be a representative of Latin America and the Caribbean region. And then once you were in the group, you were elected as the chair.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, I thought at the beginning, and at that time I was still an independent consultant and I was doing evaluation projects and just working on different things. And to me, I guess I knew a little bit of all the work that involved being the chair of EvalYouth, but I will never expect what it came after, because it's just like, it's a great opportunity, but with great opportunities, it comes a great responsibility, right? And this role has taught me a lot, not only about evaluation, not only about the evaluation ecosystem, not only about the people in the evaluation ecosystem, but also a lot about myself. One of the first things, I got invited to a lot of events, right? Like as the chair of EvalYouth, and just to give a speech, like welcoming people, new chapters, etc. And once I was sitting in my desk saying, like, what do I have to say? So basically the first thing was, I need to decide what I'm going to promote. What is my motto? What is my mark? what do I want to share? What do I want people to hear from me? And yeah, for that, I had to kind of do a self-reflection on not only what is EvalYouth, what can I do for that? And not only as the organization in general, but for the people who were participating in the network. And yeah, it's been like an amazing experience. It has opened opportunities that I actually never imagined. And it's been a shift in my life, in my career. It brought many professional opportunities. Like I was sitting in a different position and I could see not only my context, but in general, the evaluation context globally. Yeah.
So, Gabby, I just want to go back to something you said around kind of having to do self reflection to identify what you wanted to promote as chair of Eval. Can you share what you ended up coming with? Like, what was that one thing that you promoted during your chair position?
That was actually one of the interesting points because as long as I progressed, I changed. At the beginning, I was like, yeah, we need to do a lot of activities, just to be present everywhere and always promoting the inclusion of young and emerging evaluators in different aspects. But I think I learned, like just later on, what it really meant. For example, what is real inclusion of young and emerging evaluators in evaluation, and why it's not only opening up opportunities, but actually that those opportunities have to be meaningful for the people to start their careers in evaluation. It's not only about opening up spaces in general or just as entry-level positions, but how can we promote the learning and how can we promote their own growth? And one important thing is at that point of time, I was volunteer and I knew everyone was volunteer. But until that point, I was like, this is just cool. And this is something I could do. But then I also learned that volunteering comes with a lot of sacrifices. And as you just mentioned, there's a lot of energy put in place to drive these activities, but sometimes we also face a lot of challenges. Our time is limited. So we actually have to sometimes say no and say decide for the most efficient or the thing that comes more naturally or the things that we can do better and not only saying yes to everything.
Yeah, I think the learning of kind of your boundaries within a volunteer position is something you really get out of being in a leadership position of a really like a volunteer organization or network that also has like limited support, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think you just mentioned it, right? With the example of the map in the North America region. And this is something I also learned. And that's something I wanted to promote. Like volunteering, it's great. It has brought many benefits, but you actually need to invest your time. And sometimes it's just participating in any network, in any organization. It can put a lot of attention into you as a person. But if you don't do anything with that, then I mean, what's the point at the end of the day?
Yeah, that's interesting. In the last episode, I like talked about happenstance and this idea of putting yourself out there, saying yes to opportunities, and then what are the skills you need to take advantage of those opportunities? Because just having the visibility and the attention isn't going to necessarily provide you with career opportunities. And as much as we get into these positions because we're passionate about it and we want to help and promote the field, as you mentioned, it also requires sacrifices and there's so much energy we have. So Gabby, one question I have is you made a statement about the many career opportunities that you've had as a result of being a chair in EvalYouth. Can you share a couple of what those have been that you were never expecting?
Yes, Maria. Actually, some of the experiences I had and some of these opportunities that I just mentioned came with an international focus. I was before just working in Mexico. Being the chair of EvalYouth opened up opportunities for participating in international projects with international agencies. I participated, for example, in the peer review of the evaluation function of UNFPA in this perspective of a young and emerging evaluator, but also as a chair of EvalYouth. And that helped me to understand a completely different system and a completely different perspective of how the evaluation organizations work elsewhere. That's one example, but I can actually give you many other projects. Some of them were also volunteer and I don't know, like just participating, reviewing things. I was just the judge of the culturally responsive evaluation contest from the World Bank at the IEG anniversary. And that made me realize of the entire potential of young and emerging evaluators, opening what's their mind about this important topic about this new relevant topic. And I could name many other opportunities like those, but in general, I would say being the chair of EvalYouth really puts you out of there, puts a lot of attention on you, but it's also a great opportunity to learn and to not only learn individually, but like really to promote other young and emerging evaluators. Some people told me a couple of months ago when I was starting to announce I'm stepping down. They were like, but why? You have so much energy. And I was like, yeah, but like part of the spirit of EvalYouth is actually opening up opportunities for new people. So to me, that's something really important that we need to understand when the time has come, and now the time has come. And I'm really looking forward for new people who bring new energies and who can come with new different projects and ideas to shape the field and to open up opportunities. And I don't know, how was for you in North America? What was the main takeaway from chairing the regional chapter?
I think for me, there's two things that come to mind. The first one is not necessarily as a chair, but ever since I got involved with EvalYouth, it has been the people I've met. I think similarly to you, my career was very Canadian focused. And ever since my involvement in the regional consultation, it was like, wow, there's a whole world out there and we can learn so much from different regions and from evaluators doing work in different areas. And that group of people that we is an example. I've met many other folks, but reflecting back on the small group that we started in the consultation, it's been great to see how we have developed a friendship and a friendship that at a personal level that I really appreciate. On a professional level, you have all been a really great support for me. I was just starting my career when that happened, and it's been so invaluable to have people I can reach out to on WhatsApp and ask advice and ask questions. And Gabi, you recently recommended me for a contract, and I'm so grateful for that. That's just one example. But also thinking about Evan Poncelet, who was also part of that group. And I just saw him a couple of weeks ago at the Canadian Evaluation Society conference. And I remember he was at the first Canadian Evaluation Society conference that I went, and I didn't really know a lot of people. And he kind of like adopted me and introduced me to people. And my heart is just always happy after I connect with him and catch up. And then Zach Tilton, who of course is such a force in the evaluation field and such an advocate. And one thing I really appreciate of Zach is just chatting with him. I feel like I learn from his peace building and ways of addressing conflict. It's just such a great experience to see him navigate conversations. So the people that I've met through EvalYouth definitely are like number one. And then another really great experience that I've had that I was very grateful for was participating in the career development training that we developed with a global steering group, and then being able to adapt that to the North American context and going to the American Evaluation Association. It was the first time that I went to that conference, and being able to facilitate that training in person was such a great experience. And I'm very proud that that was the first pre-conference workshop ever that has been offered to people for free. So being a part of that was something that I really appreciate, and it has played a role in reinforcing to me that it's an area I'm very passionate about, which kind of leads to this podcast and the topics that I talk about now. So I think those are the two things that come up.
And like I just talk about like professional opportunities in a sense, but I agree with you because every time I meet people from EvalYouth in any conference, we just met virtually, right? But it feels like they're your long life friends and that you can just trust and rely on them. In February this year, for example, I was in the Global Evaluation Forum, and Zach, that you just mentioned, was there. And it was such a great experience because it was the first time that a lot of us met in person but we just clicked and we just understand each other. And this group of young and emerging electors actually took a very important role in one part of the conference, leading. And I will always be grateful for that. Just learning from others, just exchanging perspectives. And as you just said, it's been a source of many friendships. And I can just talk to people to the phone, like, hey, I don't really understand this, or how do I go into this? Like, how do I continue in this project? Do you have any ideas, any thoughts? To me, EvalYouth is just that backup, that network I was actually looking for at the beginning when I was looking like people like me interested in evolution. And the funny part is we do work in similar things, but we have so different life paths and so different career paths. And at the same time, it's just so funny how can we actually support each other in that sense. To me, EvalYouth has been that source of support professionally. And I know now that I'm like, because I'm officially turning 36, I'm officially not a young and emerging evaluator anymore. I feel I will always be connected to EvalYouth. And I'll always be connected to the people I met through EvalYouth. And I will be a long life supporter of EvalYouth.
Yes, similarly. And I think there's many examples of people that founded EvalYouth and I like to call them lifelong supporters of EvalYouth and the people we often rely for support, for ideas, for amplifying the efforts of EvalYouth. Gabi, one thing I did want to talk about was the aspect you mentioned around meeting people virtually and then how you just click in person. And that has been very interesting to see, especially thinking about all the connections that EvalYouth has created across the globe. At the Canadian Evaluation Society conference, I ran into folks from EvalYouth Asia. And the moment we each recognize each other as being part of EvalYouth, we hugged and they're like, you know, Gabi, because Gabi is a celebrity. And we
No.
took a photo and it was such a great moment to connect. And then you and I also had the opportunity of meeting in person, and you were so nice and you picked me up from the airport when I had a really long layover in Mexico. But you're right. It's that the connections we create and just meeting in person, and it feels like we've always met.
I don't know how to say it actually, but it's kind of that feeling of feeling close to the people because you have similar interests. And once you meet in person, it just everything makes sense. Just
Yeah.
yeah, I know.
I think it's such a successful retention strategy, to be honest, because you have these connections and these moments, and it just makes you so happy to have chosen this path
Yeah.
and this career.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like sometimes in a professional way, people can feel threatened by others by getting contracts or something. But in EvalYouth, it kind of feels like this friendship that we support. And it's not really a competition of who's doing more projects, who's doing whatever. We just help and support each other. Every time I see an opportunity and I think of my people, like of the people I met in EvalYouth, like, hey, this could be really interesting for this person or for this person. And I think that's EvalYouth.
Yeah,
The
I think
promotion doesn't only goes into the advocacy, but also into the real opportunities.
yeah, that's a great reflection. And I think one thing you mentioned a little bit earlier was around like the amount of learning that we've gained from each other, from young and emerging evaluators and the people we're connected with. And I think that's interesting because oftentimes I think there's this view that when you're starting your career, you have to find opportunities to learn from experienced evaluators that have been in the field for decades. I think EvalYouth kind of has proven the power in learning together.
Exactly, of collaboration. And you mentioned you participated in the mentoring program. To me, the mentoring program is actually that great space where it's not only a one-way learning, but it's joint learning from mentors and mentees. That's something that we promote, right? Each of us have different perspectives, and all of those perspectives are valuable to better understand the realities.
Yeah, definitely. So, Gabby, yeah, we've talked a lot about how great EvalYouth is. Over the years, I've learned that there's many people around the world because EvalYouth is literally global that are very vocal about EvalYouth and all the opportunities that it has brought to our careers and all the value that it provides to young and emerging evaluators. But as you know, one of the things I wanted to create with this podcast was a place where we have honest conversations.
Mhm.
And I think one thing we don't talk as much is that aspect that you mentioned earlier around the sacrifice. You are just coming out of a position with a lot of responsibility. And I'm curious to learn about what are some of the sacrifices that you had to make to be able to fulfill your responsibilities of this role.
That's a great question, Maria, because we actually tend to talk about the good things. We do sacrifice a lot, especially by the nature of volunteer, right? We give our time for free. And what do we get in return? Actually, it's very uncertain. Some of the things I've sacrificed, like in this position in particular of the being the chair of a global network, it's not only time, but some of the sacrifices I made, especially in this position as chair of the global network, it's routines. For example, it's a global network, so sometimes I'll meet with people in Asia or in Africa or in Europe, and I'm based in Mexico. Sometimes I need to say, oh, I cannot go with my friend, like with my friends in person to a dinner because there's this consultation, or because I have this call with people in Asia and time difference makes it this is the only time that we can talk. Sometimes I had to sacrifice some projects, like paid jobs, because I thought it was very important to do something, or then I would like to go to this conference and to promote this, or just time with my family and friends, because a lot of people expect a lot from you, and there's a lot of pressure as well. And one of the sacrifices sometimes it's like, I think the main sacrifice is time and routines and sleep. Sometimes I remember the first year, because I was very excited to be the chair of EvalYouth. The first year I was a chair, and I was invited to conferences, virtual conferences in Asia or Europe on the same week. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter if it's at 1 a.m. Mexico time or 6 a.m. Mexico time. I'll just do it because I was very excited and energetic. Sometimes you just need to sacrifice sleep.
Yeah, that's an interesting point of being part of a global initiative. You know that I have several times kind of voiced this in some of the global groups that we've had to participate representing EvalYouth North America, because I find it quite challenging to have to adjust to certain times. And I personally, for example, have sleeping problems. And for me, interrupting my night can have a huge impact on my well-being, right? So that's some of the things that we need to balance with taking these roles. And I mean, it's part of the role because it is a global opportunity.
It is a global opportunity. It is a great responsibility. And as I just said, like, people sometimes expect a lot from you. A lot of people don't really understand all the work that it involves, because it can be seen as volunteer, right? And some people is like, yeah, you just volunteer and do whatever you can. But some people is like, you volunteer, but you have to do this, this, and this. So it also comes with a lot of judgment. I've been in conferences that I've heard, why is EvalYouth everywhere nowadays? Kind of not really being that open and not really understanding the role of EvalYouth and the advantages, because it also challenges the status quo, right? So you need to kind of, I don't know if this is a sacrifice, but you need to, like, in this kind of positions, you need to understand that, yes, opening up spaces for new people is important, but it doesn't come freely, and that it will make some people uncomfortable, and sometimes people who is really vocal everywhere, and that will say, yeah, so we don't have young and emerging evaluators, so we always had so young and emerging evaluators, but we never give them focus. Why do we have to do it now? Sometimes you just need to learn how to balance these things out. You just need to learn about politics, because you're in a position of creating spaces in the best way you can, and young and emerging evaluators tend to be really vocal and revolutionary, but there are some spaces that we need to balance things out, and we can open up spaces maybe in a different way, and we just need to learn how to do it. What's the best strategy? How to act in different contexts. It's not a sacrifice, but it's something that you need to learn. Sometimes it's learning by doing, and it doesn't really mean that you'll do it perfectly every time and that just by being in this position everything will come natural. But sometimes you will have failures in these kind of positions, in these leadership positions, and that's okay. but really understanding that can be harsh.
Yeah, and I think something I was thinking as you were sharing that is that it can also be draining. As much as we're passionate about pushing this agenda, it can be draining to be facing this type of resistant comments and very strong voices within the field that are threatened by what we're trying to promote. And I do think that's a sacrifice, right? It drains energy that you could be putting elsewhere. So it's something we have to commit to.
That's really funny that you to say, because it actually happened to me. I don't know, I didn't expect it, but on the first conference I attended in person, it was a 3-day conference. And then the day after that conference, I didn't even want to leave my bed. I was like, yeah, I'm in a foreign country. I could go and visit and, just sightseeing. I could just not leave my bed. And I think for a couple of days, I was like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I just want this me time because it really drains your energy.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing you started sharing was around the skills that you learned because of where EvalYouth is situated. And I think there's a lot of people around the world that are familiar with volunteering with their VOPs, their professional associations that work within their state, region, country. But EvalYouth and there's other global partners are working in a different level of the ecosystem, which I think comes with specific skills that you need to develop and specific challenges that you need to face. So what are some of the ways in which you think your experience at that level is different to the one that you can have when you're volunteering in a more local VOP?
Well, one of the skills definitely is understanding different points of view, different cultures. For example, when you're in a local VOP, just gonna say, for example, even if you're in Mexico, if I'm in Mexico, I can talk to people, and we know we have like regional differences, but more or less it's the same culture, right? But when you are in this kind of different roles, in these global roles, you need to understand that people can communicate differently, and that sometimes for some people, like for me, it can sound rude what the other people are saying, but once you actually look into detail and you have like this more open mind, you see like, oh no, that's actually how they communicate. Like it can be rude for me, but in general for them they don't mean that way.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things, just like this openness and this cultural openness that you need to have. Another one, it's public speaking. And in particular, when you're speaking in a foreign language, one language that it's not your own, can be tough to collect your ideas and to express whatever you want to express. Yeah, learning how to be diplomatic and I think in a stronger way, because you will face not only VOPAs and other organizations, but also different agencies and different role of actors come to you, or I don't know, consulting firms, many different roles you'll be connected with. And you just need to understand where they come from, what's their perspective. And something else is like you need to develop systems thinking and to really understand your perspective, where the others are coming from, what are the boundaries and their relationships. To me, that was something really difficult because I am really enthusiastic about evaluation, promoting evaluation and the role of young emerging evaluators. But sometimes we just need to understand what are the boundaries, up to which point we can actually do something and what will be the reaction of it. This role in particular taught me a lot about systems thinking, critical and evaluative thinking, in the sense of not only evaluating a project or a program or whatever, but really your own actions and kind of being reflective on what we are doing, why we're doing it as a network and as an individual. What is your power in a sense?
That sounds very interesting. Gabi, one thing that I am curious about is you've been in EvalYouth and in this role for about 2 years. What is the one thing that you're the most proud of?
The people. Really, the connections I've made with the people. One of the moments I loved the most about being the chair of EvalYouth was the Youth in Evaluation Week, because actually there we were promoting the meaningful inclusion of young and emerging evaluators. We talk about intergenerational collaboration. The campaign and the manifesto that we promoted there has, I think, now over 1,000 signatures, which is like really amazing. And something else that kind of combines both is a career development package that you just mentioned, because that combined the power of the people, but also the meaningful engagement of youth in evaluation, in the sense that different regional chapters and people from different regions contributed to this specific program. They put their own views into one global program, but then they adapted it into the regional context. After that, I've heard people that joined any of these trainings, and then that was kind of the starting point in their careers, and that they started to be engaged in that. And something I really, really, really like, and I really think it's one of the legacies of EvalYouth, is a mentoring program. Mm-hmm. And we are now developing kind of the new phase. Unfortunately, it will not be over until after I'm stepping down as chair. But the mentoring program has been a great project of EvalYouth that has also connected people from different generations. It's a project that opens up the evaluation field for many young and emerging evaluators. Like you just mentioned that you were part of the mentoring program.
Yes, definitely. And one thing I was thinking, Gabi, as I was hearing you especially talk about Youth in Evaluation Week and the career development training, that I think, at least I would love to acknowledge, is the support that we receive as EvalYouth from the United Nations Population Fund. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but in all the initiatives I've been involved in, it has been the UNFPA that is providing us with many times the financial support that makes any of these things happen.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think the greatest support of EvalYouth and youth initiatives is the United Nations Population Fund, especially the Evaluation Office, now Independent Evaluation Office, because sometimes the support can be just opening up spaces, right? And inviting people. And we see now more and more the promotion of young emerging evaluators in evaluation, for example, in their own terms of reference. Sometimes it is a very direct support to EvalYouth or to regional chapters, global network activities, but it is a real champion for opening up opportunities for young and emerging evaluators in their own practice, meaningfully engaging youth.
Yeah, they definitely walk the talk, and it's been very evident to see in the contracts, the RFPs they have released, that they're doing that internally.
Yeah, it's not only the advocacy and talking and the campaigns, but they are really doing actions, like real actions.
Yeah.
Into that sense, yeah. I think EvalYouth activities have been supported by UNFPA in many different ways, and I'm always grateful for that.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. So, Gabi, we're kind of closing up and reaching the end of the episode, and I do know that the nominations for EvalYouth are open. So, what would you say to someone that is considering self-nominating but is kind of on the fence and haven't made up their minds?
I would say, first, I will invite everyone who's considering and exploring the roles and really assessing their own capabilities. It is a lot of work. And even though we want to participate in these roles or we want to participate in these positions, it is not for everyone. I will invite everyone just to do a self-reflection. Do I have the time? What can I bring to the table? Do I really have the energy? And do I really want to promote young and emerging evaluators? And then if you answered yes to all of that, then I think you will be a great fit. If you want to be there just to be part of the management group, but you don't really have the time, I will just say maybe you can still get involved into different other activities and keep promoting young and emerging evaluators in many other capacities. But I will just invite that, because sometimes it's really appealing, right? Just to be in these kind of positions. But really, if we care about promotion of young and emerging evaluators, if we want to open up those spaces, we definitely need to have the time and the energy and all the bandwidth to do it.
Right. And the ability to actually fulfill what we're committing to.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes when we think it's volunteering and I'll do what I can, yes, but at the same time, it's really a commitment and we need to take that commitment serious. If you're considering and applying and self-nominating, do it. Just be in mind of what does it take. And if you're still not sure, if you have whatever it takes, talk to people from who has been part of EvalYouth, talk to people who has been part of the management group. Yeah, send any questions that you might have, and then just participate. Make really a difference, not only for you, but for others.
Okay, Gabby, how can people find out who to ask questions to or how else to get involved with EvalYouth?
So if you have questions about the elections, you can send us an email to evalyouth@gmail.com or to our social media like Twitter or X or LinkedIn and send us a question there if you have any questions about the elections. One of the things that we really want is that the people who's elected for the management group, it is a young and emerging evaluator, keeping in mind that EvalYouth is a network for young people by young people. I encourage young and emerging evaluators to participate. And don't be afraid. Sometimes we feel like we don't have that much experience within EvalYouth, etc., as I did. But then if you're really committed, if you really want to make a change, you can do it. And I mean, being part of the management group is only a way, but you can also get involved into the regional chapters, into the national chapters. Maybe just come to EvalYouth Global Network, send an email to evalyouth@gmail.com and say, I want to organize this. How can we do it? Like, there are many different ways to promote young and emerging evaluators to be that leader. And you can also participate in the Youth in Evaluation Week. There are many different opportunities to promote young and emerging evaluators if you don't want to commit to the management group. But if you do, please do so and give your best to this great network.
Great. And one thing that I would love to see in this new board of EvalYouth Global Management Group is representation from North America. I know that this year we had amazing representation, but in the previous board, there was no one from our region. So I'm really hoping people from Canada or the United States that are interested step in. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me through LinkedIn. You can also reach out to EvalYouth North America. Best way is also LinkedIn, but we really want to see that position filled.
Yeah, and Maria, maybe from the regional chapter's perspective, what would you like the new management group to do? What kind of activities? What would you expect from a new cohort of management group?
That's a great question that you are probably better situated to answer. But if I were to say something I would appreciate in a leader is a real passion for ensuring. I loved your comment around sharing the spotlight. And one thing that I've shared with you, you and I have had this conversation many times in WhatsApp. When I joined the field and I was starting to follow people on LinkedIn and try to go to events to learn and become an evaluator, I very soon started to notice that I see the same faces in these events and I hear the same voices and I don't see myself represented in those events. And EvalYouth has been refreshing in that way for me. But I think we still have that. We still have certain voices that are always present and many voices that are not invited. So I would love to see a leader that brings that perspective and that perspective of sharing the spotlight within the EvalYouth Global Management Board. Not that you haven't done that, and I know many times you're invited because you're the chair, but just in general, embodying that sharing the spotlight across the board, across the regional chapters, because I think that's what I would love to see in the next generation of evaluation.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really looking forward to hearing new ideas and maybe to reshape even EvalYouth. Maybe to better collaborate with regional chapters and say, what is our future as a network? And how can we ensure that we are committed to our mission, to our values, to achieve our mission, but like how to do it in the new times. Like EvalYouth is turning 10 next year, and I'm really looking forward what the future brings.
Yeah, and also how we can learn, right? Because we have all had experiences across the world where we've learned so much, and how can we share those learnings so that we're strengthening the national, regional, and the global groups?
Yeah, so this is like maybe just a final invitation. Participate even in the management group or any other activities And if you want to lead an activity for now and maybe being better prepared for the next elections, that's great. And start your involvement in the VOPES, in the EvalYouth chapters. Take an active role in your career growth, but also to help others.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Gabi. This has been so great, and I will be forever grateful to my EvalYouth involvement for making us cross paths and become friends.
Yeah. Thank you, Maria. It's been great. I really enjoyed talking to you. I'm sure that we'll still be friends even if we're not in these positions anymore. And I'll always be grateful for all the friendships that we made along the way. And thank you for this space also. And all the best for the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.